Hey guys, and welcome back to another DCS A-10 tutorial. Today we're going to go over the TAD. I'm going to just go over the basic functions on the symbology for it and how to use it to get what you need out of it as far as marking points and using it to keep your situational awareness up. So we're just in a nice little right-hand climbing turn here. I've got some targets on the ground, which we'll look at a little later. And yeah, so let's get started on the TAD. So our TAD is currently pulled up on our left MFD. I'll go ahead and pause the track IR here. Maybe. There we go. Alright, so our TAD is our Tactical Awareness Display. It's basically a moving map display based on our GPS INS navigation. So what it is telling us is our current position based on GPS coordinates. And then it has a map overlay to give us a visual representation of where we are. So we're currently flying over Batumi, like I said, in a right-hand climbing turn. Just gaining some altitude here. There's quite a bit of symbology and information available on the TAD at any given time. I'm going to go over that with you today. So to start, we'll start with the actual center display. You'll see in the center of the display there's a little A-10 shaped aircraft right there in the middle. That's indicating your position. There's also a little cross on top of that A-10, that's your TAD cursor, and you can slew that around with your slew controls when the TAD is set as soy. So we'll go ahead and set the TAD as soy right now, and you can see that I can slew the cursor around. And you'll notice when I pass over objects, all that extra information pops up, which I will go over shortly here. So you'll also notice that we have some concentric rings around our aircraft, and those are representative of specific ranges in a radius around our aircraft, and they are set to the current scale that our TAD is set to. So currently we're on a 5-mile scale, which is indicated on the top right corner up here, and we can zoom our TAD in and out. You'll see that the scale in miles change, as well as the map scale just below it. We zoom our TAD in and out with DMS up and down. So those rings in the center, you have two sets of rings. You have an inner ring and an outer ring. The outer ring is representative of that range value. So on a 5-mile map scale like we are right now, that outer ring is indicating a radius of 5 miles around your aircraft. And obviously that would mean the inner ring is half that distance, so that smaller ring is going to be 2.5 miles. And that will scale up as you zoom your TAD in and out. So that now our outer ring is 10 miles and our inner ring is 5 miles. Now our outer ring is 20 miles and our inner ring is 10 miles, and so on and so forth, all the way out to 160 miles. You'll also notice that hash marks on the inside ring. Those are cardinal directions on the compass, with the arrow, of course, being north, and then having east, south, and west, respectively, clockwise around the circle. So it's a very handy tool to get a quick, at-a-glance idea of which way you're heading and which way your targets are and that kind of thing. So it's very, very, very helpful in keeping your situational awareness about your location and location of your guys, wingmen, allied flights, targets, taskings, steer points, everything. So that basically covers the inner symbology. You'll see we got some squares and lines around. That's indicative of our current flight plan. Flight plan steer points are always connected by lines, assuming that the TAD settings are set to display the lines. You'll see that we have steer point 0, which is that square box here with the 0 next to it. That's our initial position, and if I zoom the TAD out just a little bit, you'll see we have steer point 1, 2, and 3 as well. And you'll also notice that 1 is yellow, which means that is our currently active steer point. The other thing you'll notice about steer point 1 is it has a funky little wedding cake white symbol in there, and as I went over in the speed tutorial, that is our speed marker. So wherever our speed is set, that will that icon will indicate that location on the map. So currently, because we haven't messed with the speed, it's currently snapped to our currently active waypoint. And yeah, there's a couple other icons on here. The small green X's are indicative of friendly positions on the ground that are capable of data linking. So usually any vehicle, friendly vehicle on the ground, for the most part, will be marked with a green X. At least a JTAC unit will be marked with a green X. So that's another way again of keeping your SA and knowing that there's a friendly position. Those will also show up on your HUD, those X's, and your TGP as well to indicate where the friendly ground forces are. Assuming that they have the data link capability, you're only going to see those green X's when they are using the Joint Tactical Radio System, JTRS, that's in the aircraft. So most of the time it's going to be JTACs and people who are capable of data link. What you're also not seeing, which is a very common thing that you will see on your TAD, is allied flights and wingmen. I'll go over this in a little bit more depth when I talk about the data link network, but for the most part, any allied flight or flight that's on a data link or is data link capable will show up as a circle with a line coming out of it, and the line's going to be indicating that particular aircraft's heading. And there'll be a number below the circle and a number inside the circle, depending on what kind of contact it is. The number below the circle will indicate that particular contact's altitude, and the number inside of the circle will indicate the current net ID that is on, which I'll go over a little bit more once we get to the data link network options. Around the outside, you'll see all of our options, our OSB button options. You'll also see a lot of extraneous information like bearings and latitude, longitude, GPS coordinates and that kind of thing. And I'll try and break these down for you. So basically, we're just going to go clockwise around the top, starting from the top left and going just around the dial, checking out all the options. So our first thing on the top left corner is the Bullseye, and that's our position relative to the Bullseye. If you don't know what the Bullseye is, I'll probably do a quick tutorial on that. Basically, it's just a fixed reference point that all aircraft can reference to reference their own position. So it's an easy way for everybody to reference their own position, so people can have an idea of where both allied and enemy targets are. So currently, this is displaying our Bullseye. So this is our position relative to the Bullseye. So we are 173 degrees off the Bullseye. So if you would picture the Bullseye as the center of a compass rose, and you would take a 170 degree bearing off of that, a radial off of that Bullseye, we would be along that line, and we would be 31 miles out along that line. So we're 32 miles now away from the Bullseye at a radial of 171. It's a little complicated. It's harder. It's easier to illustrate with a picture. So I'll probably do a tutorial on the Bullseye a little bit later. Next to that, we have a control menu, which is where we set all of our options. I'll open that up shortly here. You'll see the outer options change. The first option, TAD, will just return us to the regular TAD page. Reset's going to set all of our settings back to reset. Save, obviously, will save changes that we make in this menu. And then the other options we have are going to be on the left-hand side. We can cycle through the different symbology with the rotaries here. So we can choose to display no symbology, except your speed, data link contacts, and yourself. you can choose to just show the flight plan, all contacts which are going to be other extraneous contacts. That doesn't really change anything right here. There's not anything else to show. We can turn the lines on and off. We can turn all of the extraneous hook or target information on and off. You see all that stuff disappeared. And again, we can turn it all off. So we just cycle through the amount of crap that's displayed on the TG or on the TAD. It helps for when everything's getting really cluttered, or you need to, see something underneath the steer point marker or something like that, and you can change the options there. Those will set your options, so you can punch that in and hit save, and it'll save all the options. You can also change those on the fly, which I'll show you in a little bit. We can also create a new steer point from our current, I forget if it's our current position or if it's our current cursor position. I believe it's the cursor position, but I'm not entirely certain. Nope. In this, it's a profile. So we can change a profile. So I was totally wrong there. In this particular menu, will create a new profile, so we can set up all those options that I was talking to you about just now, and save it as a profile, so we can have alternate profiles for different things. We have the change settings menu down here, which will give us some more symbology options. We can turn the range rings off. We can turn all the hook info off. We can turn waypoint lines off. It's pretty self-explanatory. We can change our speed displays, so only our own speed will be displayed, or everybody's speed is capable of broadcasting one. And obviously you can save your setting changes up here. We just hit RET, or return, to return to the previous menu. And that basically covers the control settings of the TAD. And obviously you'll have these mouse over tooltips if you have them turned on. That will give you a little bit of demystification on what exactly the button's going to do. So we'll return to the main TAD menu. And now up here, we can really quickly, like I was saying before, you can also change your settings on the fly as far as display settings go. So we can turn we currently have all set. So it's going to display all. We can turn the lines off. We can turn all the symbology off, and a couple of different options. Which the ACT is going to turn off the data, the mouse over data, when we scroll our cursor over an object. So it's just easy ways of decluttering your TAD. On the right-hand corner, upper right-hand corner, we've got again the range display in miles and the map scale in whatever you would call that, as 1 to 1 million scale map. Just below that we have our speed on-off indicator, which changes based on whether or not you are broadcasting a SPI. So if we wanted to broadcast our SPI, we would do DMS left long. You'll see that SPI toggles to on. And we do DMS left long again. Oops, accidentally zoomed the map there, and it turns it off. Note that the OSB button will not change that switch. The only way to do that is on the throttle, or excuse me, on the HOTAS on the stick with DMS left long. Below that, down here, we have the LL option, which is going to change our readout down here on the bottom from latitude, longitude to MGRS grid coordinates. So you'll see that that changes now to grid coordinates. You can turn it off or turn it back to latitude, longitude. Below that is our network options. This is for our data link, which is what I was talking about earlier. The data link is a pretty powerful tool, and one of the things that is really handy is you can use it to keep track of not only all Allied flights, but your wingmen especially. And to do that is when you first start out on a mission, you can set your group ID and your own ID on the network. So anybody that has the same group ID as you will be considered to be in your same flight, and they'll come up as a purple little contact on your TAD, so a purple circle with a line coming out of it, or blue, or whatever color it is. It looks purple to me. So, for example, we, for some reason, we set our group to 10, so everybody who is group 10 would set their group ID to 10, and their own ID to whatever their flight number was. So, lead would obviously be 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yada, yada, yada. And those would be displayed, everybody would be displayed as a purple circle on everybody else's TAD, and then you would have your flight own ID number inside the circle, so it's really easy at a glance to see where everybody is. So currently, I'm not going to change that, but the way you would change it is you would go up to your UFC up top, which I can't look at right now because my tracker arrow is paused. Either your UFC up top or the CDU console on the left-hand console, and you would punch in your desired group ID. So, like, for example, 10, we would hit 10, and then we would come over here to this OSB, and we'd hit that, and it would set 10. And then the same for the own ID. It's really simple to change. It's the standard way to input data into the MFDs. So that's the TAD net page. We can do some other stuff in here. We can, and I'll go on this a little deeper here. Once you have your network set up, you can data link targets to each other. You can data link different information. You can send text messages via the aircraft data link network. So it's pretty kind of a cool and useful tool. I'll go into it a little bit deeper a little bit later. Alright, so along the bottom we have all kinds of information here. Currently, the bottom right hand section is going to display range and information based on the position of the cursor and the settings you have your hook to. So for example, we have it set on hook own right now, so that means it's from the hooked object to our own ship. And our cursor is currently over our own ship, so our information is displaying 0 degrees at 0 miles because obviously it's right on top of us. So if we were to look at steer point 1, you would see that it is it is 205, well, it's going to change this because we're turning, but we're 215 degrees and 10 miles away from steer 1. So it's useful information, and again, like I said, it changes due to the hook options over here. You'll see if I cycle through the hook options, the information changes relative. So that's going to give you a reciprocal of our last because we just converted that. Now that's relative from the steer point to the bullseye, from the bullseye to the steer point, from the hook to the cursor, so that's going to give us a live idea, so we can move our cursor around on an object. You'll see it changes much more finitely because it's actually registering the position of the cursor, and that's from the hook to the cursor, so it's thinking we have steer point 1 hooked right now, so it's just giving us, we can go all the way around the center of the steer point, so we're just, let's see, north would be here somewhere, so we're there's almost 0, and as we go around the steer point you'll see it changes. That should be about 180 here. So yeah, basically it's giving us an idea as to how positions relative to whatever we have that hook option set as. I'll talk about hooking a little bit more in depth when we get to that point. And that'll probably clear up a lot of that confusion I just probably threw at you. So just know that this is your hooked information. So whatever you have, you're hooked in, and whatever your hook is relative to, that's going to display down here. It also shows along the bottom the current latitude and longitude, or MGRS if you have it set on MGRS, of the current object. So it's not necessarily our cursor, it's going to be the object, but again, that's going to change, I believe, based on... No, it's still just going to be the object. So whatever object you have on here, be it a steer point, a tasking marker, a little friendly marker, your aircraft, somebody else's aircraft, it's going to show the latitude and longitude, or MGRS grid coordinates of that object down along the bottom. Great. If we have something hooked or our cursor is over it, we also have the option to create a steer point. This is what I was talking about earlier when I messed up and was in the other menu. But this is to create a steer point at your current object's position. So if we get a tasking from a JTAC or something that's out in the middle of nowhere, we can hook that and hit that button over there, and it will create a steer point based on that object's location on the ground. And there you see the button, copy hook as mission waypoint. So whatever we have hooked gets created as a mission waypoint. Above that we have our hook options, and I'm going to break into this a little bit right now and talk to you about hooks. Because I've blabbered a lot about it already, but I didn't really explain what it was. So hooks are a way to select objects on the TAD and get information that is relative to them. Because of the way the TAD works, we can't arbitrarily just move our cursor somewhere and say, okay, you know, I want GPS coordinates here. There's a way to do it. We can create a mark point at wherever our cursor is, and then all of a sudden we can pull the GPS coordinates from that location, but it's going to be that location only. We can't just get like a live update of our cursor. But we can find objects on the map and get their hook information, hook them and get their hook information relative to however we have the hook set up. So let's say this is here's a friendly position. This is a JTAC down on the ground. This is green X. So let's say we want to hook this guy because we want to get his position relative to the bullseye for some reason. Maybe we need to tell AWACS where the friendlies are. I don't know. So what we can do is we put our cursor over him, and then we just do TMS up short, and you'll see now he's hooked. I can move my cursor off him, and you'll see that dashed yellow line going from me to the X means we're hooked. Now keep in mind that that yellow line is going to change based on, again, your hook options. Currently it's set to hook own, so that means it's from whatever our hooked object is to our own ship. I went through the different options just a minute ago, and they're pretty self-explanatory. But what we're looking for right now is we want to get his bullseye position from the bullseye. So what we want is to cycle this to, let's see, I think we want it from bull to the hook. So it's from bull to hook. Now you'll see the lines coming from the bullseye, which is way up there to the north. That's our bullseye indication here. And you'll see that that object, that JTAC's current bullseye, is 1494042, or correction, 024. That's going to be his radial from the bullseye. So he's on the 149 radial. So if we zoom out here, I'll try and explain that to you. So here's north and south and east and west. So if we put that right over the bullseye, north would be up that way, and south would be up that way. So south this way would be 180. So his radial coming off of that direction is a little bit less than south 180. So that's going to be 149. So it's angled off in between, 090 and 180. So basically it's just a compass heading from the bullseye and a range to whatever you have hooked. So we can pull that from bullseye, we can pull it from the hook to the cursor, so we can get any range and distance. We can measure ranges on here if we wanted to, like if we needed to know what was, this particular dude's range to Batumi for some reason. Like we could bring it over here to Batumi, we can see that, you know, he's 210 degrees away, 210 degrees off the 2 me, 17 miles away. So there's all kinds of little nifty information you can get from your TAD with the hook options. It's a pretty intuitive little device once you figure it out. The other thing is data linking, and I think I'll make a separate tutorial for data linking stuff because it's complicated and I need an extra person so we can shoot data links back and forth to each other. But basically, to data link stuff, you would hook the other aircraft that you needed to data link to, and then you would get some options over here to data link, you know, your SPI or an attack, you know, attack target command or something like that. And he would receive that, and he would get a little marker wherever your SPI was. So, like, say you had your eyeballs on a T-72 you needed blown up, but you didn't have the gear to do it, and he did. You could go, all right, I got a target on my SPI. You know, I'll shoot you data link, and you send him the data link. He gets a little marker on the TAD, which he can go over to hook with his cursor and then set his SPI on it and attack it. So it's really handy to share information. You also get the same kind of thing from JTACs. They'll send you a 9-line brief, give you all the information, and then they'll send you data, which will have a mark that will be put down on your TAD for the target coordinates. And it's really handy because you can just shoot your, instead of punching it into the CDU manually with the coordinates, you can just grab it off of the TAD and make it a steer point that way. Alright, so that basically covers the hooking principles. I can go over that more. If you guys want a separate tutorial just for that, we can do that or something. It's a lot of stuff to digest, so I don't want to overwhelm you. Just with that kind of, you know, all that information. And again, the data linking is something else I want to go over, so we'll probably go in depth a little bit more with the data link capabilities of the aircraft in a separate tutorial. The last thing we have on here is the map settings. We can change from map auto, which automatically scales your map based on your zoom range. We can turn the map off completely, which is super nice sometimes, especially at night, because you can't see it with night vision when the map's up. It's just a big white blob. And then we can do map manual, so like maybe we don't have, you know, we're zoomed all the way in, and maybe we don't have a 1 to 1 million map scale for a particular area of the map. So we can actually zoom out, grab this particular scale, and then set it to manual and zoom back in, and we'll be able to see at least where we are in a general way without losing the map completely. You'll notice that it's staying, the map scale is staying the same as I zoom now, whereas if I have it on auto, it will change the map scale to match. So it's pretty handy. Like if you want a pretty detailed map but you need to zoom out, you can change it to manual, we can zoom out and we keep the map scale the same. Alright, that pretty much covers the symbology for the TAD. The rest of the stuff on the TAD is just basic usage. I've gone over it in the speed tutorial a little bit, but you can do lots of stuff with the TAD cursor. I already talked to you about hooking stuff. Hooking is your primary mode of selecting an object. So we hook it, and then if we wanted to set our SPI, we could do that on any object we've hooked with TMS up long. So we TMS up short first to hook it, which I just did on steer point 0, and then we do TMS up long, and you see we set our SPI on that. And then we go TMS back long to reset it to our active steer point. TMS back short will unhook the object. Pretty basic stuff. The other things you can know about is if you scroll your cursor all the way up, it will automatically zoom out. And I believe if you dig at the bottom, it might zoom you back in. Not quite sure. No, it'll just continuously zoom you out. So that's another way to manipulate your TAD. And then again, DMS left long, turn your SPI broadcast on and off. DMS up and down will zoom your TAD. And then China Hat also has a few functions, as I've gone over in the China Hat or HOTAS buttons tutorial. China hat forward long obviously slews all of our stuff to our SPI. So you'll notice that our TAD cursor just slewed directly over to our active steer plane, because that's where our SPI is, and it automatically zoomed our map out so it fit on the screen. China hat, that's China hat forward long, so that's slew all sensors to SPI, pretty straightforward. China hat back short recenters the TAD cursor. You see now it's back on the A10 little icon, and that's pretty much it for the TAD China hat options. So China hat forward long, slew all sensor to SPI, China hat back long, recenter TAD cursor. The last thing we need to do is China hat forward short. Remember how that changes our view angle in other sensors. In the TAD, it cycles through 3 different modes. We have the fixed map mode, like we see here. We have 2 exploration modes, or expanded modes, EXP1 and EXP2. It'll just take you to quick different zoom levels, and it will also center your map on your cursor instead of your aircraft in a northwest or north-south orientation. So north is straight up and south is down, but you see as we slew the cursor around, the map moves with the cursor instead of the aircraft. And that's China hat forward short, so we can just cycle through those with China hat forward short. And you can still zoom your map accordingly, however you need to. Alright, so that pretty much covers all the functionality. Oh, there's one more thing. China hat, or excuse me, DMS right short changes our TAD from centered on our aircraft to offset downwards. So we have actually 3 range rings now. As you can see, the aircraft is now down towards the bottom quadrant of the TAD. So we now have we're at 60 mile range now. So we now have a 20 mile ring, a 40 mile ring, and a 60 mile ring. And you'll see if we DMS left and right, it changes from 40 to 60. So it gives us that extra 20 miles of view out in front of us. So it's just another way of being able to use your TAD if you like that. If you don't want to know what's out in front of you, it's another way to do that. And that's DMS right short. Alright, so that pretty much covers the TAD overview. If you have any more questions or you need help with something, let me know in the comments and I'll try and answer your questions. If you like the videos, let me know. Like the videos, comment, subscribe to the channel if you're liking the tutorials. It keeps me cranking these out, get close to getting into the weapons deployment stuff. That's always exciting, lots of fun to teach. So just keep me posted and tell me that you're liking what you're seeing. Until then, have fun flying, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.